Hello and welcome back to this letter, everybody. Welcome back to Killing Floor 3, where today we're going to be taking a look at the Sharpshooter class and all the things that you get with this. So Sharpshooter is one of the classes that you can pick, and it's basically Sharpshooter plus Gunslinger from Killing Floor 2 that are combined into one. So your starting weapon is called the Fieldmaster HR-10. This one is a semi-automatic rifle that holds 8 shots, which is kind of a weird amount for it to use, but I kind of like it as a scout rifle. This one does do pretty good damage at 230, that's one of the highest, holds 8 rounds in the magazine, and has 154 capacity overall. It's also got a bunch of mods like everything in this game. So this one has decent iron sights. It only has semi-auto fire. There is nothing else. It doesn't have any sort of secondary fire. The hip fire from this is also quite good, so that's pretty nice. Even though the crosshair is fairly big here, it's pretty accurate to where the reticle is actually pointing. So this one I enjoy quite a bit, and you can spam it out quite fast too. So if enemies are charging, you can do quite a bit of damage thanks to that. The secondary is called the Disciple, which this one is basically a Lomat revolver, and it's probably my favorite secondary. So this one is a 9-shot revolver with a hidden 10-shot in its underbarrel, which is a shotgun shell. And it's also break action when you reload it. It's also got some really nice animations whenever you inspect it too, so I really like that. The 10th shot is an underbarreled shotgun that also deals ice damage. You can't really see it on the targets here, but you can freeze things with this. It's also currently bugged since you can shoot it, sprint, and it will reload itself. I don't think that's intentional, and I hope that gets fixed, but you can do that. You can also do it with the underbarreled grenade launchers, I've noticed too. So, yeah, pretty cool little revolver here. I really enjoy this one. It's got good damage. You can also spam this one out pretty fast too, and it stays on target quite well. For the amount of damage this one does, it's 160 per shot, which is quite good for a secondary, especially with how quick you can shoot it. And it has 250 damage on the ice shotgun shell. Your ult is basically just a oh crap button where you fire out a spike that goes and hits enemies, whatever you're looking at, and it can hit the same enemy multiple times. Does a lot of damage. I think you get like 8 hits from it normally, which is pretty good. Your grenade is your ice grenade from Killing Floor 2, so you throw it out, deals ice damage, freezes enemies, makes it so you can kill them a little bit quicker. If they can't move, then that's pretty good. And then your tool that you get in this one is door locks, which I should have some footage playing now of that. This is basically like Demo's Weld from Killing Floor 2, where you can put this on any door, and then that door can actually be open now. Your teammates can run right through it if you interact with it, but if the door gets damaged so much, it will explode and deal damage to everything around the door, which is pretty good. You get 4 of these, so you get a lot of them. There isn't a whole lot of doors on the maps that are currently in the beta. However, there's only 3 maps in the beta right now, and there's going to be 7 maps on release. So we'll see how many there are there. The more doors you have, the more useful this is going to be overall. For your tier 2, you have this, which is the Artemis Marksman. This one does 120 damage per shot. However, this one does hold more rounds at 21, and it has a capacity of 300. This one is kind of weird. It's like a hybrid between an assault rifle and a sniper rifle. Whoops, that's not the right one. This one. So it holds 21 rounds. The iron sights are actually pretty good for it, and it's 3-round burst, or it's semi-auto, which is a bit weird. Semi-auto does feel pretty good, at least for picking off small enemies, and then switching it to 3-round burst for dealing with bigger enemies is kind of okay. As well as running around with this, doesn't feel too bad because it feels very similar to like an assault rifle. It's not my favorite, it's probably my least favorite of the sniper rifles that we got here, but it's something. The tier 3 is called the ESR 360. This one does more damage, and this one punches through more enemies, which is kind of cool. This one holds 8 rounds, has 104 total capacity. This one has pretty good iron sights too. Actually quite good iron sights. I do like this quite a bit. And it does quite high damage, as well as you can shoot this fairly quick. It doesn't hold the most amount of shots, and there is no secondary fire on it. It's semi-auto only. But hey, 8 rounds with fairly high damage is pretty nice. And again, all of these can be changed with different upgrades, different mods that you can put on them. So that's always going to be good. Then your tier 4 is called the Samaritan. This one is kind of like an ice railgun, sort of. This one does 673 damage, oddly specific amount, and it also does cold damage. Holds 10 rounds, and then has a 90-round spare mag. And this one also is just semi-auto only, and this one does really high damage, and it can freeze enemies. So this one feels really good. It feels particularly strong on Sharpshooter overall, so that's nice to see. It does have a weird magazine to it though, which I don't really mind, as well as I do kind of like some of these animations too, since it's more of a weird, future-y railgun. For the skills of Sharpshooter, let's go over the passives, then we'll go over throwables and gadgets. So first up, we got Sniper. If you crouch, you have less weapon spread, and your recovery is faster. kind of like Sniper from Killing Floor 2, or we've got Hunter, which is less weapon spread whenever you're walking around. Cool, that's kind of nice, I guess, as well as you can walk at full speed when you're ADSing. Pretty straightforward there. I don't think either of those are going to be way crazy, but they're going to be nice. Then we have Untouchable. If you haven't taken damage in the last 10 seconds, you deal more damage to enemies' weak spots. Again, kind of similar to what you would think for Sharpshooter from like Killing Floor 2. Then we've got Easy Prey. This one makes it so you deal more damage to enemies that are afflicted by at least one affliction, whether that be stumbling, burning, or freezing. So that's good, especially since you have a rifle that can freeze enemies. And then we got Big Shot. Whenever you're ADSing and you're hitting enemies' weak spots, you do even more damage. Kind of standard for Sharpshooter. Then we've got Hard Shell. This one makes it so it has a cooldown, but if you get hit by melee, you just ignore the melee, which is pretty good. That gives more survivability to Sharpshooter. At least that one hit. After that, you'll still take damage from it. Then we have Evasive Maneuvers, which makes it so you take reduced damage when sprinting or sliding. A lot of the game you're going to be sprinting or sliding, so that one is also pretty good. Just taking less damage is super useful. At level 20, we have Field Supplies. You carry 2 additional syringes, as well as it gives you more burst healing from the syringe, so you can carry up to 5 syringes. Usually you can carry 3. That is pretty nice. And then we've got Flight Response, which makes it so taking damage increases your movement speed by 15% for 4 seconds. That's going to be pretty useful too. Just getting out of danger is pretty nice, especially if you take it with something like the Evasive Maneuvers and just take reduced damage when you are running around. Then we've got Perfect Shot. Shooting an enemy in the weak spot grants a stack of Perfect Shot up to 10 times. Failing to hit enemies... okay, this is basically Rack 'em Up. You get more damage the more times you're hitting enemies in their weak spot, wherever that might be. And that's pretty good. Sharpshooter and Gunslinger both really liked that. Then we got Big Game Hunter. Deal 15% increased ballistic damage and cold damage to large enemies, and participating in large enemy takedowns gives you stack of Big Game Hunter, stacking up to 10 times. Big Game Hunter deal 2% increased damage to large enemies and bosses for each stack. That's also pretty good. You're probably going to be killing most of the big enemies like Scrakes, Flesh Pounds, and you're going to be doing high damage to the boss. So just doing more damage to them is pretty nice. I don't know if that's actually going to matter so much if you just go with Perfect Shot, because you could stack this one up higher. But this one does stay, so it will be easier to actually stack up then. Then we also got Rack 'em Up, which, I mean, I just said the other one's Rack 'em Up, but apparently we got regular Rack 'em Up too. Destroying enemies, critical hit zone, grants Rack 'em Up to 5 maximum stacks. Stacks last for 6 seconds before falling off, and you get increased damage for each of these. 6% per level, but then that will increase too. I imagine that'll go up to like 10% at max. Having 50% more damage towards everything is going to be good. So yeah, I'm probably just going to pick Rack 'em Up over everything, because you can probably do more damage and more damage per second thanks to that. For the throwable, this is your Cryo Grenade, where you got Cold Snap, increase the explosion radius of the Cryo Grenade, pretty straightforward. We've also got enemies frozen by the Cryo Grenade are frozen for 20% longer. That's going to be really useful for small enemies, not so much for big enemies since they break through it pretty fast. And then we've got the Freezer Burn, which makes it so you just deal more damage thanks to the Cryo Grenade. So if you want a more traditional grenade, you can go with that one. Then at the level 10 and level 22, it's just more grenades, so you can carry around 4 of these, which is nice. At level 16, we got Blizzard. Cryo Grenade Explosion creates 3 Blizzard ground effects that apply freeze and affliction over time. Basically like ground fire, but it's ground ice, so that one could be really good. Or we have the Black Ice, which makes it so it creates 3 explosions of Black Ice ground cold effect, which applies cold damage and enfeebles enemies, which makes them slower and makes it so they can't attack as quick and do less damage. It's very similar to like the Hemogoblins effect from Killing Floor 2. And then at level 28, we've got Frostbite. Enemies hit by the Cryo Grenade Explosion have a vulnerability to ballistic, force, and cold damage. That's increased by 15% for 5 seconds. More damage to hurt enemies is good, and weakening them with your grenade is pretty nice. We have the Portal Vortex. The increase of the Blizzard and the Black Ice Grenade is increased by 40%. That actually sounds pretty good for both of those, whether it just be more floor ice or just weakening more enemies. And then we've got the Icebreaker, which makes it so the Cryo Grenade explodes for a second time. The second explosion also applies Stumble Affliction and 300 force damage. That's pretty good too. Just more freezing is pretty good as well. And if you need to freeze bosses, I imagine this one's going to be pretty nice. And then we have your gadget, which is called the Death's Hand. It's your oh crap button where you fire it out and then it just targets whatever and can hit them multiple times. So this one makes it so you just get more damage to enemies that you didn't already hit. So that one's pretty nice. Buzz Bomb. The final arrow explodes, dealing more damage. This is what it looks like. That's pretty good. Then we have the Bloodsucker. Using this just gets your health back. Makes you tankier. That's going to be pretty good. You get like 8 to 10 hits from this, so you could potentially get 16 to 20 HP, at least with the first level of this. That's pretty good. It's probably going to increase by 1 or 2 each time, probably by like 1. So maybe up to 4 or 5 HP at max, probably 5 HP at max, and hits 8 to 10 times. So you could potentially get half your health bar back. At level 12, we've got Sting Operation. Using the arrow in flight gains 10% weapon damage. So you use this and then you do more damage. Cool. And then we've got Fight or Flight. Increases your movement speed whenever the arrow is out. That's kind of nice too. That's going to be useful. I would still probably pick the more damage one, just so I could hit things even harder, but more movement speed's good. Then we got Giant Slayer. Deal more damage to big enemies. Pretty straightforward. Pretty good. Then we got Killer B. Arrow projectile speed is increased by 25%. Whenever the arrow kills an enemy, increases the maximum number of targets by 1 up to 2 at max. So you can just bounce around more and kill more enemies. This one's better for crowd control. And then we've got Cold-Blooded, which makes it so this one can also freeze all enemies that it hits, which is also pretty good. Freezing enemies makes it so they can't attack you back. So that's going to be nice. Then we got Arm's Length at level 24. This one makes it so killing enemies afar grants you 4 gadget energy. This is just so that you can use your ult more often. So kill enemies at a distance, use your ult more. Cool. A Target Run, increase the maximum number of targets by the arrow by 4. Like I said, you can get like 8 to 10 of these. So I imagine this can be increased up to like maybe 10 targets more, which could make it so like the healing one could just give you like all of your health back, which could be pretty useful in certain situations. I imagine on like Hell on Earth that could come in handy. Then our level 30, we have the Queen Bee. Fire 4 micro missiles out that just deal more damage. That sounds pretty good. We've got the Bug Out. Increase the radius of the arrow's final explosion and greatly increase the explosive damage increased by 50%. That's a pretty big explosion. I don't know if that sounds better than just throwing out more of them, but cool. And then we got Frosted Tips. You'd have freezing arrows. So, and it makes it so it does more damage. That one's also pretty good. Sharpshooter here is pretty strong. Sharpshooter's pretty fun to play so far, I found, and their weapons are pretty cool. Their ult is pretty cool. Their gadget's a little bit strange, where you attach that to doors and stuff. I kind of associate that more with Demo, which you think like Engineer might have that, but it kind of makes sense for them having the multi-tool. But yeah, I'm actually enjoying this one quite a bit, especially the secondary. The Lamette Revolver is pretty cool. And that'll do it for Sharpshooter. Tell me your thoughts on Sharpshooter overall. I think that they're going to be pretty cool. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.